Would you like to learn how to make amazing smoked brisket? Just like this? Well, in this episode of the Lisa D Delight Show, I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious smoked brisket. We're going to use some Cosmos injectable seasoning and some other yumminess. You make your smoked brisket like this, your smoked brisket is guaranteed to be off the chain.
Lisa D Delight. Got noises in my stomach, so I guess I'm feeling hungry. I click that YouTube Lisa D so I can kill this rumbling. But when I'm in the kitchen, don't know what I'm doing, stumbling. This time I try to cook, I burn it.
So I got a new toy, my Pit Boss Pro 1150 series. Her name is Little Mama. Little Mama and I did our thing on the smoked brisket, and we're gonna show you how. So, in all transparency, this is actually my first time smoking a brisket, but lucky for me, I had my pal, my good buddy, Smokey Mo Barbecue, guiding me every step of the way. I'm still not a professional like him, but for my first time smoking a brisket, I think I did pretty darn good. It may not look A+, but I sure know it tasted A+. Please go over to Instagram and check out my buddy Smokey Mo Barbecue. Give him a follow because he is an absolute beast when it comes to barbecue. And also be on the lookout for him here on YouTube. He will be starting his channel soon and hitting us up with some good old barbecue. His Instagram link will be in my description box and pinned in my comments. So here I have a whole brisket that is almost 15 pounds, and we're going to cook it low and slow. I named my brisket Boosie Badass Brisket. Why? Because I can. But first, before I even got started, I had to rinse Big Boosie Badass off. I didn't pay the mortgage at your house this month, so I can't tell you what to do. But child, I don't want no Boosie brisket cooties. So the first thing we're going to do is to get Boosie all trimmed up, because we need to get some of this thick fat off of him. This hunk of fat right here is called the decal, and it must go because it's so fat and so hard that it won't render down during the cook. So we want to cut it on that, but leave as much as the muscle tissue as you can. When doing this, it's best to use a boning knife or a chef knife. I don't have that type of knife, so I just had to make it do what it do, boo-boo. Here on the bottom of the brisket, we have a little bit of fat and some silver skin that we want to take off. This is actually the type of fat that will render down, but if you have the time, take it off. It doesn't have to be perfect though. Oh, but it's best to cut the brisket straight out of the fridge because it's easier to cut the fat off when the meat is cold. And then we want to round off the point as well as rounding off all four corners because they stick out and they have a tendency to catch more heat and burn off. So we want to round out everything as evenly as possible and remove all the oxidized edges. Now here on the fat cap, we want to cut a lot of this fat off also. We want to bring it down to 1/4 of an inch. We leave some of this fat on because it helps to protect Boosie from the heat while he's cooking on the pellet grill. On my Pit Boss, the heat source comes from the bottom, so I cook Boosie fat cap down, and that just acts as a little insulation, a little barrier, so that Boosie doesn't get hit with direct heat and he won't get tough and dried out. So we want to leave about 1/4 of an inch of fat left on Boosie, just like so. You can take off a little bit more of the fat on the point end because it's marbled. Now it's time to season Big Boosie. My buddy Smokey Mo told me to try this Cosmos injection. He said it was really good and he never lied. It was so tasty. Not only is it super flavorful, but it also has moisture retaining components to it, so it keeps the meat nice and juicy. So we want to inject with the grain in 1-inch intervals. And I learned the hard way that you really should put your hand over the needle when you're injecting because it tends to shoot out if you don't. So after we yummified the inside of Big Boosie, now we got to get him all yummied up on the outside. I fell in love with this Kinder seasoning. is so good. It's the wood-fired garlic hardwood smoke blend. It gave amazing flavor to this brisket. We got to get a good amount of seasoning on him because he is a big piece of meat. Pause. But when you're seasoning, you want to season from up high. That way you get an even application. I know I'm not doing that here. I can't be pretty, a bomb cook, and remember everything. Jeez, y'all be wanting too much. Be sure to season the brisket on the front and the back, and also don't forget the sides. We don't really need a binder here because some of the Cosmos injection marinade spilled out onto the outside of the brisket, so we're using that as our binder. That's going to also help the dry seasoning to adhere. Once done seasoning, I'm going to place Big Boosie in the refrigerator overnight, uncovered, and we're going to do kind of like a dry brine because the salt that's in this product will slowly penetrate the meat overnight, making it more tender, flavorful, and yummified. And you want to take your hand and pat and press down on the meat to get the seasoning to adhere even better. You never want to rub your seasoning in though, because then the seasoning will clump up and you'll mess up the even application that we were going for. And you might end up with bald spots on the meat that has no seasoning. So now it's the next morning and me and little mama are ready to go. I'm thinking about changing her name though to Big Body Brenda. Tell me in the comments, what do you think I should name my grill? Little Mama or Big Body Brenda? So Boosie Badass Brisket says he likes it low and slow, so that's what we're going to do. The key is to keep the temperature low. That way we get maximum smoke on the brisket, and that will really help to build a beautiful bark. I tried these hickory maple cherry pellets, and they were so tasty on this brisket. This is going to be a very long cook, so we want to fill the hopper all the way up to the top. Then we're ready to fire little mama up. We're going to turn her on and pump her up to 200 degrees. It took her about 15 to 20 minutes to come up to temp. And now we're ready to party. So I placed the brisket on the top shelf of the Pit Boss, which is farther away from the heat, which will make it less likely of becoming dry. But if you prefer to put the brisket on the bottom shelf, just be sure to put the point towards the firebox because that's the fat piece of the meat and it'll be less likely to dry out as opposed to the flat wood. So now I'm just gonna let Boosie go on and smoke, and I'm gonna check him every 90 minutes or so and see if I need to spritz him with water or not. If he looks a little dry, I might give him a little spritz. Some people do these long cooks overnight, but to me that sounds a little scary to go to sleep and leave the grill running. Anyways, now it's been about 8 hours, so let's check on Big Boosie and see what we're working with. Okay. He's turned dark. He kind of swelled up a little bit. I see he has a couple of dry patches. So off camera, I went ahead and spritzed him a little bit. And I went ahead and took Boosie's internal temp, and he's sitting at about 165. And that's normally the perfect time to wrap him because he sweated out a lot of his moisture. It's gotten past the stall, and the bark is usually perfectly set up. If you wrap it too early in the process, before it's had a chance to sweat out all of that moisture, then you're going to get a lot of steam inside the wrapping that you do, and that will dissolve the bark on the top of the brisket and it'll soften it up, and that's what we don't want. So I pulled off 2 pieces of butcher paper and I overlapped them, and now I'm just going to bring the paper up and over the brisket, and then I'm going to tuck it in around the brisket as best I can. You want to try to get it kind of tight. Tuck. It's kind of like swaddling a baby a little bit. And then I'm going to roll it over 2 times. And then for the sides, all you have to do is just take them and tuck them under just like so. So now he's snug as a bug and ready to go back on the pit. But before I put him back on the pit, I want to take his temperature once more. I'm going to put the thermometer right in the center of the flat and go about halfway down. Now he's sitting at about 160 degrees and back on the grill he goes. So at this point, I can turn the heat up some. I'm gonna crank her up to 250 degrees. and let it finish out right there. And when Big Boosie reaches about 200 degrees, he's gonna be done, son.
6 hours later.
Little mama thinks she's all that, and she is. She comes with her own app. I love the Smoke It app. I live in Texas and it's hot out there, and sometimes I don't be wanting to go out there and check on no food, child. But the app is really cool. It tells you your desired temp for your grill and the current temp of your grill, and it tells you the temperature of the meat probes, and you can even increase or decrease the temperature of your grill right here with the app. I had put my meat probe in off camera, but you can see here that the probe is reading at 187. So once that hits 200, I reckon we'll be ready to eat. Slow down, sis. We gotta let it rest first. I wanted to double check the accuracy of the meat probes, so it was only off by a few degrees, which isn't too bad, but in general I feel like the meat probes aren't really that accurate. So now he's been smoking, wrapped up for a total of 8 hours, and he's finally reached 202 degrees. I didn't catch that read on camera. But when you poke your thermometer in the brisket, if it feels like room temperature butter and there's not a lot of resistance against the probe, then it's done. Another little test is to pick it up, and if it wobbles like jelly, it's done. Now we're gonna wrap him up in a towel and put him in the cooler to rest. The reason for the towel in the cooler is it allows the meat to stay at a stable temperature for a longer period of time rather than quickly cooling off, and that allows the juices to redistribute properly, and it also allows some of the moisture that was lost to be reabsorbed back into the meat, leaving us with a tender, juicier brisket. You should rest your brisket 2 to 3 hours, minimum 1 hour.
2 hours later.
Okay, let's unrobe Big Boosie and see what we're working with. Come on, come on. Hurry up, sauce. We don't have all day. Okay. Come through, Big Boosie. I see you.
Lisa D delights.
Well, it's not the bark I was hoping for, but hey, I never claimed to be a pit master. It is my first brisket. Not too shabby in my opinion. Don't judge me. At least I tried. Practice makes perfect. Have you ever smoked a brisket? Where your brisket at? Nah, but even though the bark wasn't what I wanted it to be, the flavor was outstanding. That Cosmos injectable and the Kinders really gave amazing flavor to the brisket. And it was juicy, but it also had a bite to it. Here's the bend test. As you can see, it has a bite to it. I think Smokey Mo said I didn't get the bark I wanted because I didn't take enough of the fat off. But I'm just glad it tasted good. And here's the pull apart test. Overall, I'm just really impressed and really happy at how great this Pit Boss Grill performed. I also smoked some ribs. They came out super yummy. You can check out that video above. I'm really in love with the Pit Boss. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every penny. I also made some delicious burnt ends out of this brisket. You gotta check out that video. It'll be above depending on when you're seeing this. Me, Big Boosie Badass Brisket, and Little Mama want to thank you for watching. We had so much fun. They told me to ask you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. They said it won't hurt your finger or your wallet. Have a blessed, delicious, and delightful day. Bye.
Lisa D delights. Please, damn, you make the feel look so good. Make sure you like and subscribe. Damn, you make the feel look so good. Make sure you like and subscribe. Damn, you make the feel look so good. Make sure you like and subscribe. Damn, you make the feel look so good. Make sure you like and subscribe.